Soviet Union was a bad place for everybody. But Jews were not only deprived of their freedom, they were deprived of their identity.
There were no Jewish schools, there were no opportunity to go to synagogues.
You are socially isolated and stigmatized.
You could not know or learn anything about your language, about your culture, about your history, about your religion.
You are almost an enemy of the people.
They were under Soviet domination and reduced to a life of poverty and generally speaking, misery.
Soviet Jews simply said, we're never going to get rights here in the Soviet Union. We simply want to leave.
The numbers of people able to leave were shrinking dramatically.
You couldn't even move to a larger, more metropolitan city, let alone move to another country.
When 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 began to say, Отпусти народ мой, Shelach et ami, let my people go, they were taking on the greatest totalitarian power on earth.
Many Jews started learning in the underground about their own identity.
The Soviet Jewry movement was really the Jewish civil rights movement.
I started to try and organize protests. I wrote letters every day to the Soviet officials, and they arrested me, they would beat me up.
Many were arrested and interrogated, intimidated, put it in Gulag.
I was at that time already 10 years in the prison.
We can't go back to slavery. Just this road doesn't exist.
You represent your nation. You have to be proud. You have to struggle for the pride of your nation, and you are able to do it.
We could never survive in the Soviet Union this struggle even one day if it didn't become immediately the movement of all the Jews of the world. First of all, of American Jewry.
Some of us came to the Soviet Jewry movement because of what we saw as the failure of American Jews to save 6 million Jews.
Never again was not to be just a hollow phrase that we yell at rallies, but it's something we had to live.
We marched in the streets. We rallied. We sat in Soviet offices. We created a tremendously vigorous lobbying effort in Congress.
And then people started going to the Soviet Union to help refuseniks.
Here we were talking to a Soviet Jew behind the Iron Curtain, halfway around the world.
Jews of America helped to build informational channels. And then they turned this issue of Soviet Jews into the major stone of international policy of the United States of America.
I had a meeting with Gorbachev, and he went after me. Hey, you had this away, I'm always meeting with all these lousy Jews. And I said to him, have I got a deal for you? If you think they're lousy Jews, we'll take them off your hands.
There was much talk about Gorbachev making a historic first visit to the United States. What were we going to do? How were we going to respond, galvanize?
And there was a debate for some time. Do we call a rally if we can't have a crowd?
In the end, this was a crapshoot.
But nothing prepared us for what happened.
We began to get requests for first dozens, and then scores, and then hundreds of bus parking permits. You know, an average of 40 to 50 people a bus. Well, wait, we now have 200 buses, 300 buses, 400 buses, 500 buses.
One of the memories that sears in my mind was seeing people walking onto the mall from every direction.
This whole wave of humanity.
The stage was in the middle of the mall. We turned around, and there are thousands of people coming from the other direction.
Buses streaming in from all sorts of places around the country. People flying in to the airports.
People came from every community around the country.
And you look out and you saw tens and tens of thousands of people in this bitter cold. It was really stinky weather.
We don't care if the program is 1 hour or 4 hours. We're here.
On December 6th, 1987, we were no longer the Jews of silence. We were the Jews who found our voice.
You can still feel the echoes today.
We had the leadership of America speak.
Let them go. Let them go.
Former refuseniks and Asirei Tzion, prisoners for Zion, standing there and addressing the crowd. A few years before, they were somewhere in the Gulag or they were somewhere in exile.
Then, after Gorbachev arrived, we could say, you know, a lot of people are worried about this issue. This has got a big mass of people behind it.
Reagan had an opportunity to say to Gorbachev, and he said it to him, that you see, my people will never permit me not to fight for the freedom of Soviet Jews.
We helped create that political force which forced the Soviet Union to open up the gates and ultimately to slide the Soviet Union into oblivion.
That here, in the face of this massive Soviet dominant repressive regime, they can't put out that human spirit.
We landed in Israel on April 20th, 1988.
We had, I think, $1,200 in our pocket, and when we landed in America,
being able to come to America obviously gave me an opportunity to basically be whoever I wanted to be.
The American Jewish community was so transformed by this effort.
The impact of those former Soviet Jews is tremendous. 5 Nobel Prize winners, numerous medical innovations, Google.
But I also think that we didn't do a good enough job in the Jewish community to really promote and educate people about what one of our greatest accomplishments as Jewish community has been.
Essentially, it's been forgotten.
For all important as it was to us growing up, to our parents' generation, and for all the incredible impact that it had, we realized that there was a void.
Freedom 25 is, to me, the opportunity to look back, to look ahead. Jews have a unique way of looking at history. For us, history is not about the past, it's about the future. We look back in order to look forward.
Because if we don't spend the time now educating, putting into curricula, getting into the schools and camps, what it was to be successful through a movement of unity, political activism as a community, our kids will never know about it.